Welcome to Bloom State Radio. This is episode number 6. And episode number 6 this month is around my time pregnant, my birthing story, and breastfeeding. So I'm going to attempt to contain this within a 30-minute episode. But if things move more fluidly and I need to do a part 2, then so be it. So just to give some context, I am 6 years into mothering. I have a very beautiful 6-year-old girl. And stepping into motherhood has been something that I didn't really know that I needed. It's been incredibly confronting in the sense of me being a witness to the inner oppressor. Very crunchy to admit, but I'm here for the truth for my girl and for myself. And my style of parenting is not, if you do this, you get a sweet. My style of parenting is not manipulative. Whilst there have been times where I have used those tactics, and I don't have any shame in admitting that, because the truth is what it is, and I believe that I'm parenting in a completely different way to the generations that have been before me. So there's going to be things that I need to tidy up in terms of how I approach the behaviour of a developing child, including my own. I'm still a juvenile mum. I'm only 6 years into this, just like she's 6 years earthside. So I do allow myself the bandwidth to fuck up because I'm not perfect. I am still new to this. However, I do believe that I'm doing a very good fucking job at it. As I have studied and peeled back the layers of myself, studied and peeled back the layers of the system that I've been born into and what she's been born into, and really done some deep diving studying to ensure that she was carried within my body to the best of my health ability. And same with the birthing process and same with breastfeeding. I think like the pregnancy, the way a child's delivered and how they're nurtured is fundamentally the most important thing that we can do for our child, alongside raising them in a healthy environment and all the things. But their first start in life is dependent on how the mum shows up for self and baby. And when I'd conceived, I hadn't really heard of free birthing before this. But free birthing has always been a thing. Our ancestors have been popping babies out on kitchen tables. My great nan did. Bless your beautiful soul, goddess, because she was a massive inspiration for me. I don't remember her within my memory, but on a somatic and a spirit level, girl, that DNA runs right through me. And I was tapping into her energy whenever I would start to have doubts about my ability to naturally birth a baby. Now, also want to just give a bit of context. I feel like I process quote unquote pain a bit differently. I've always been into like tattoos and, you know, I train in martial arts now, which obviously involves a bit of quote unquote pain. But generally I've always been like I was a bit of a tomboy when I was a kid, so a bit of rough and tumble. I never really minded any of that, to be honest. So my association with quote unquote pain is potentially different to other women. So I'm only going to speak in a objective, experienced context here. So, and I was never afraid. I've never been afraid of giving birth. I've been slightly nervous, but I was never, ever, I'm terrified of this. I was like, okay, let's see how we go. But also, I have to give myself credit because I put in a 100% work into ensuring that I was healthy throughout my pregnancy, that I'd studied the clinical module, that I'd studied free birthing, and I was surrounding myself with women who were equally on that path as well. One of my friends at the time, she had free birthed her baby, and she's the one who actually dropped the seed of awareness that this is a fucking thing and girl, you can do it. I was like, what? I have got to do this. And I knew that I could do it, but circumstances shifted within the birthing experience, which meant that hospital was my best approach. Not because I was feeling incapable, but because I really wanted to have someone there who I knew had my interest at best, who knew the signs where I needed a bit of encouragement, who knew how to support me in birthing a fucking human being into this world. So it was a last minute thing. The labour and everything was moving really, really smooth. I actually connected with a bit of cannabis before I went to the hospital just to help ease things out, and it worked like an absolute dream. I had no drugs, no cutting, I had no tears, and this is why I feel like I want to just broadcast how deeply important that it is for any woman who conceives, whether you've had 1 child, 2 child, 3, whatever. The seed of human life being nurtured is ultimately the mother's responsibility. And I'm just going to say that. It is. No one can control what you feed yourself. No one can control your motivation to keep moving the body. No one can control how you stretch and strengthen and make sure physically you're strong. Because what translates through to the psychological space, body, mind is interlinked. And if your body is feeling like weak, or you've just been eating loads of shit and quote unquote eating for 2, which is bullshit, you're not gonna potentially do very well. I don't know. I know there's lots of nuance in this, and I know some women just fucking wing it and smash their birth, which is fair play. But I'm not, and I wasn't willing to just do that because that's the type of person that I am. I wanted to put 100% into the nurturing of this beautiful little seed that grew inside of me. So I did, and I really started to learn and understand how the body reacts when it's in a state of fear through contraction, and how the blood actually rushes through to the legs and hands for fight or flight. And when I learned that concept, which means that the blood is being, flushed away from the womb, when the womb starts to contract with a restricted blood flow, that's where the pain is really going to come in. And when I was in labour, I actually had the opportunity to witness that. The only time that I had an awareness of fear, that's when this contraction came tearing through my body. And one of my biggest fears was birthing a stillborn baby. It haunted me throughout my entire pregnancy, and I was convinced, there was a hairline of convinced that this baby's not going to make it. And again, when I reflect back, part of me didn't fully surrender into the reality that my baby was going to make it. So whether that affects her in life, I don't know, but it would be an honest conversation that I would have with her if, that has been a programmed experience for her of rejection, I guess. Whilst I wasn't intentionally rejecting, I am aware that there is an element of that in there where I'm like, I can't fully fucking trust this. This baby's going to die. And no matter how much awareness that I put to those thoughts, no matter how much I tried to shift that on a somatic level, all the way through my pregnancy, up until the point where I'm in labour, and this woman's voice came to me, and this is going to sound potentially a little bit wild for anyone who's not really tapped into spirit, but there was a woman's voice that came to me while I was deeply in my ujjayi breath, ocean breath, breathing into the sensations of labour, which is fucking radical, by the way. It isn't, you don't need to be afraid of it. If you've got a solid breath pinned, everything just moves so fluidly. And a particular breath, which is ujjayi breath, ocean breath, which is the only breath that I nailed throughout the entire birth, it releases a relaxation gland in the brain, which means that the body's more fluid for movement. But anyway, I was deep in this strong fucking current, and this woman's voice came to me and it said, "What's the one thing that you fear the most?" And I, in my mind, went to reply, "Stillborn," but I'd only got to the born bit, before my awareness shifted into the body, and this contraction fucking teared right through me. And in that moment, I was like, no, This has haunted me throughout my entire pregnancy. This is not going to take me away from my inherent power and nature to birth this baby. I'm going the full fucking way. So it was like this wild, like millisecond of a moment of like, do you know what? If this baby's stillborn, so be it. And in that moment, I made that declaration. It feels like a split second, but as we know, like soul time and this kind of like experience like is boundless. There is no time here. Whilst we're in a time constructed 3D reality, within these realms of time, it literally doesn't exist. So when I connected with that, like, fuck no, you are, whatever this fear is, you are not taking this away from me. And I breathed back into my body, breathed back into the fucking, I don't even know, like the ether. Everything went really smooth. I was in my own zone, practically on my own. There was a person present, but actually I was on my own. I was doing this alone, which is what it is because I set myself up for this anyway, which is a whole different backstory. But for the nature of this recording, I did it. And I remember in that moment making the decision to go to the hospital because I just really wanted there to be someone present who knew how to support me. I made my way into the clinical environment after like already having countless meetings with the head of midwifery, making it very clear that if I was to come into the hospital environment, because I'd already mentioned to them that I'm going to free birth or have a home birth, like those two components, that's my dream. That's what I want for birthing my baby. And there is no law to say that that cannot happen. There's a law around someone else catching the baby. Apparently, like if someone else holds the baby from the yoni, that's against the law unless it's the mum. Very fucked up rule. But anyway, so they knew that this is what I wanted. And it was like going into a business meeting, actually, where it was like there was like some negotiation of what I can and cannot do. And I was like, I can do whatever the fuck I want. Obviously, I wouldn't tell anybody that someone else was going to catch the baby if that was what was going to happen. But because I'd been in and I'd made my presence known, I'd made it known like what I will and will not accept and how far I'm going to go for naturally, vaginally birthing this baby. And it was the whole fucking way, even down to baby being breech, which within the clinical environment, breech babies, they say you have to be cut open. But I was like, no, the only time that there's going to be any sort of intervention is if the baby's life is at risk or my life is at risk. That's the only time. I'm going the whole way, babes. And the head of midwifery was like, yeah, we'll see about that if it's breech. I was like, what do you mean you'll see? I was like, this is my baby, this is my birth, and I'm telling you, I'm going the whole way. So whether you want to support that if I come into this environment and this happens, then, you know, that's on you. But ultimately, you have to have my consent to intervene with this birth. And I just don't think they were fully equipped for a woman coming in who actually has done her research and her education. And whilst I wasn't like pushing the system away, I was like, I appreciate that you're there if I need you, but actually I want to do a lot of this on my own, to the point where I'd cancelled the second half of my checkup appointments. I thought this is just wasting my time. You're tick box exercise. I'd have them ringing me. You need your blah, blah, blah jabs. I'm like, can we just stop this? Because I've already said I will not be vaccinated and my child will not receive a vitamin K jab on birth either. So please make sure that all of this is documented, because I'm going to be very unhappy if I'm not listened to here and people are going to start trying to push their agenda on me. So they did, as in they listened, and they didn't try to push their agenda on me, and they didn't try and push me into a space that they knew that they couldn't get that control over, because I've made it very clear from the start. And when I was teaching pregnancy yoga while I was pregnant and sort of moving through these channels, I was able to feed this information back to my students and sort of get them on board with taking their birth by the frickin' reins, you know, like don't just be expecting the system to take your birth, because that is what they'll do. Whilst this environment has its benefits, and I know it has saved women's and babies' lives, and there's in no way am I slating this system, there are components within it that do not work. Like, let's get that bit clear. So when it was my time, I did have a birth plan in the sense of what I do want, what I don't want, which is like no male doctors in the room, no one else in the room other than, and the lights are to be dimmed. I'm not that bothered about music, but the environment, the energy of the midwife has to be calm. I want language to be positive. I don't want to hear things about like my birth's not progressing. I don't want to have any negative noise in my space while I'm in my space birthing a baby. And fair play to them, they listened. And when I actually made it to the hospital, the midwife, she knew all about me because we'd been chatting. She was sort of into hypnobirthing, and she was more in the natural delivery sense as well, which was just like an absolute blessing. When I saw her face, I just get goosebumps now as well. She was like, Leanne, and she said, she was my first midwife, and she said, I really want to help you birth your baby. And she got to do that, as in help me birth my baby. So when she saw me, she immediately went and filled up the birth pool. Do you want me to fill the birth pool? Yes, please. And off she went. By the time I actually got into hospital, I was 9 centimetres dilated. 10 centimetres is when baby is born. So literally 99% of the labour I'd absolutely nailed. And when she said 9 centimetres, I was like, oh my God, get the fuck in there. And I'm not going to say it was a breeze, but it was definitely manageable. And again, I think it's down to how I prepared myself during the pregnancy, which would be an hour and a half of yoga every day, non-negotiable. Always going out for a walk, minimum 1 hour a day, non-negotiable. Fluids, healthy food. It was more of a 90-10 ratio. So 10% I would allow myself to have like a chippy or can of Coke or whatever it was that was in that 10% realm. But 90%, that was me on it for the entire duration. And I did deal with some annoyances in the clinical environment. One being continuously told that my baby's too small, I'm not measuring on point. And as I mentioned just before, when I said that I was done with like these quote unquote checkups, it was that point I was like, walked into a second growth scan because I had this fear that my baby was going to die. That's how I moved in the clinical environment. And again, when I had that awareness on it, it's that the system can only operate and get your consent if you are rooted in a state of fear, mainly. There's nuance to this, I get that. But from the majority, if you're operating from a place of fear, you can be easily manipulated and controlled, right? So I visited the second growth scan thing and I walked into the room, male doctor, please take a seat. And I said, no, I'm going to stand actually, thank you. And it's like the glitch in the matrix, as they say. He didn't know what to say or how to approach me because he's so used to women being like, yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir. Well, not today, honey, because I'm saying no. And again, being a mom has really helped me exercise and strengthen my boundaries, my no's, my yeses. What do I want? What do I don't want? And just be more clear in my stepping from maiden to mother. So there was a few things that were a little bit of annoyance, but actually they were a blessing because it meant that I actually quit using their facilities and just sat in that state of, I am in such an unknown environment right now in the sense of my baby could die any minute and I've decided to reject scans for future ref. And I'm glad I did because she was born so beautifully and she was healthy. She latched immediately, no fucking problem. My recovery time, 3 weeks, no tears. Everything feels so much better, actually, a lot tighter. My womb space is clear. I've had very little like yeast infections. I used to get them really, really bad, actually, due to like stress and an imbalance of hormones. But they say when a baby graces your womb, what they birth out with that is any sort of negative energy that's been held there or any imbalances. So I allowed that to be intentional, that when she was born, everything else that needs to be cleared from that womb space goes with her. And I've never really had anything since. Every now and again there'll be something, but not really. Everything is clear, healthy and beautiful and vibrant down there. So woohoo! And as I said, she latched on no problem. Absolutely no problem. I knew she was a girl from the get-go. I didn't have a gender scan. I just knew. I was like 99.9% sure this is a girl that I'm carrying here. And she was always lotus. She came to me in my dream state. I was getting visuals of lotuses while I was in my dreams. We had this spiritual dialect where we were having a conversation. We were connecting into telepathy. She came to me and we bonded to some degree before she was actually physically born. And when I kept witnessing this fear of stillborn baby, that was just a mental fear because of the connection that we had when she was already in my womb space and spirit space. And I knew she was going to be fine. I really nailed into affirmations to ensure that my programming was fit, strong, healthy. I know I can birth this baby naturally, vaginally, drug-free. That's the vibe, babe, and that's what I'm going for. And that is what I had, and I'm so stoked with it because I know a lot of people, a lot of women struggle with trauma post-birth because they haven't given themselves the insight and the training potentially to really connect into what these sensations are going to bring. And with yoga, when we're stretching and strengthening out the body, we are opening up the hips, the posture's becoming aligned, and the baby just comes out much more fluidly if your posture and your anatomical body is in alignment. Same with energy, same with mental body, same with spirit. Meditation every day, again, non-negotiable, 10 minutes every day for the last month of the pregnancy. And I remember the day before she arrived and I'd connected into my meditation practice, and I felt this overwhelming flood of energy move through me. And I mentally said to her, I'm ready for you when you're ready for me. I've got goosebumps even just saying this now because literally 10 minutes after I'd come out of that, my mucus plug went and I was like, what? Unreal. These like jigsaw puzzle pieces which sort of knit the physical and the non-physical realities. That definitely felt like something for me where I was like, okay, babes, you can fucking definitely hear me right now, whether it's from a telepathic communicative way or whether you can just hear my thoughts. I don't know. All I know is that she received that call and we worked together from conception to that point as well. And yeah, like I said, the birth was beautiful. The only real times that I had some really intense pain was that one time that I've just mentioned about when that fear and the somatic connection happened. And the only other time was when I was being wheeled in backwards on a wheelchair over the sort of rubbly, bumpy, cobbled sort of pathway. But she's 9 centimeters dilated. Her head was probably about, I don't even know. She's deep down in the birth canal. That's all I'm going to say. So that was like, fuck. But, you know, that could have been avoided potentially. Now I know if I do birth another baby again, that I will not be sat on a wheelchair being wheeled over a cobbled pathway. I'll be in my beautiful birthing pool at home, free birthing without clinical help potentially. But having that deep faith and trust that it's all going to work in accordance with the destiny of this child's birth. And I think that's something that I've carried with me for, I don't know, many lifetimes, is faith. I know everything's going to be okay. I've got to this point in my life right now and I feel amazing. I know everything's going to be okay, irrespective of what's put my way. So she was born. She was £6.12. All happy, healthy. In hindsight, I would have kept the cord and had a lotus birth, which means that the cord just naturally drops off. But it means she was fine anyway. The cord was kept white, and yeah, I was just like basking in this moment of holding my baby after connecting with her in spirit, connecting to her in utero. And now I was like, whoa, what the heck? I've got a baby in my arms. Trippy to feel her body leave my body and have that sense of awareness because I wasn't drugged up. It's another level. So she was born, she latched on, breastfeeding went well. And then I got home, and in complete honesty, I remember looking down at her and I was like, how do I love you? What do I do here? And I know a lot of women actually do experience this, and she has been such a beacon for my sense of growth and my sense of healing. Just healing in the sense of like learning how to love, learning how to trust in love. And if she's the only human that I can devote that to for the rest of my living days, I'm okay with that. It just makes me feel a bit emotional, just even connecting into how potent that is, and how I didn't actually know that that's what I needed. I needed to learn and to trust, and yeah, it didn't come naturally to me for reasons that I know, but reasons that I have moved past and have deeply connected with. She's the most important person in my entire life, and she's the only person who I've ever really connected with this true sense of love for ever. And I'm really grateful that she's given me that opportunity to commit myself to, in terms of, preparing my body, everything, my life for her, to guiding her as this beautiful being while she simultaneously guides me. She calls me out when my behaviour is not acceptable, or she puts her arms around me. Even if I've not expressed any sensitivity, she is just so unbelievably attuned. We're both very attuned. Our nervous systems are intrinsically linked, and it's incredible for me to be able to witness and observe how intrinsically linked that we are. I'm about to come on my period. She knows. She's experiencing emotions as well. I'm like, what the fuck? I didn't really put the pieces together until a couple of years ago when she was getting really emotional. And I'm like, she's been having early nights and her diet is well. Nothing really seems to be ajar in our environment, like all is well. Yeah, but she's experiencing this wild emotion. I'm like, oh, of course. We're intrinsically linked. So, when times get a bit sensitive, we're both in this sensitive boat together. And I believe that I support her to the best of my ability, without wanting to parentify her, because in no way is that healthy. I'm a grown woman. It's my job to manage my emotions, but she is a juvenile. So it is my responsibility to manage hers too. But it's never, ever, ever her responsibility to manage mine. And that's what I make very, very clear. Whilst I appreciate her love and her kindness and her comfort and all the things, I will never make it her responsibility to manage my emotions. That's on me. And when I'm out of line and I'm tired and, I get snappy and I have that fucking outburst, I always apologise to her, and I have done since she was young, you know. I think that's really important, and that's part of the reparation, and that's how we can strengthen in our relationship to our children, which is a necessary pathway, that we get sober with ourselves, with our environment, with our lives. We look after ourselves. We're strong. They need us to be strong. So when I see parents just give up on themselves, they're ultimately, in my opinion, giving up on their child's future as well. And I know that sounds really harsh, but it's something that I feel is true. You know, do we want to be an example for them? Or do we want them to just find their own way? Ideally, we want to be guiding them in a way that's healthy, sober, and of right direction. You know, obviously there's going to be twists and turns and deviations away from that, but ultimately it's on us. It is. And I'm 31 minutes into the recording. So part 2 of my breastfeeding experience, which I went for 3 whole years, will come in a side episode. But for now, I'm going to wrap this one up. Thank you so much for listening. And you'll hear from me soon. Peace.